Welcome to WION Business Masters, a brand new business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders and how they have placed India at the top of the world ranks. And joining us today is a man who has changed the entire insurance buying landscape of India. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Alok Bansal, Executive Vice Chairman of PB Fintech and co-founder of PB Fintech as well. Welcome to WION Business Masters, Mr. Bansal.
Thank you for having me here.
Now, Mr. Bansal, in the old days, insurance clearly meant men in crisp shirts with compact suitcases, walking into homes and explaining people about the insurance policies. If I'm not wrong, it has been around 16 years of building Policy Bazaar. How has the journey been like?
So, see, if we think of insurance, let's just step back and think about what is the product. Usually when you buy anything, you want instant gratification. This product forces you to think about what if. It forces you to contemplate anything negative which may happen in life. It also forces you to put 1 hour of your life going through different options. So it's not a very easy product from the customer perspective. And if a customer is not getting anything in return right away, they don't really see the need of buying it today. On the other hand, just think about another factor. India usually used to be a joint family society.
Right.
And joint family was the social security system that we all had. Today, when joint family has moved towards nuclear families and people have moved from smaller towns to urban centers, as soon as you start your family and a career, you start to think about some of these things. That what if? Now, what if is about few things. Risk of living too short, even risk of living too long, hospitalization, child cost planning, your assets, all these things put together, right? Now, insurance in India, as you rightly said, earlier used to be focused usually from the tax saving perspective. And we just tried to broaden the horizon of the products in terms of what all it can cover for the customers. And that's what we have been doing for the last 16 years, that for middle class, these are the few considerations that need to have. And insurance is the easiest way to buy this peace of mind.
Right, Mr. Bansal, you do speak of how you've perhaps changed the whole insurance buying landscape for the past 16 years. How has Policy Bazaar's model evolved since its inception, and what kind of changes have been the most impactful under your leadership?
So, if we look at what Policy Bazaar does, in terms of ethos and the value system, nothing has changed. We always try to sell the protection product to the customers, trying to solve for a basic need that they have. From that perspective, nothing has changed. But if I think of the business per se, in terms of the nuts and bolts of the business, then it has evolved multiple times. See, in the first avatar, from 2008 till 2011 on, or maybe 12, we would get the customers to come to us and we'll pass on these inquiries to insurance companies. Eventually, we were able to do the transaction on the platform to some extent, which basically means that the customer will do 50% of the transaction on the platform, 50% on insurance companies' websites. Again, a broken experience. And then we were able to do front-end integrations to the extent that person who comes to Policy Bazaar ends up getting a policy on the Policy Bazaar platform itself, a bit like buying an air ticket on any of the OTAs today. Eventually, we realized, no, it's not just about the front end, it's also about the back end. And then we got even deeper where we talked to our partners in terms of what are the different customer segments we are targeting, what are the customer needs in terms of the products for that segment, how do we remove the friction from the buying process, how do we involve ourselves from the claim process perspective also, because claim itself is a very big area to be handled. So we are going deeper and deeper, and we are getting good support from our partners obviously, but the basic ethos of why we started Policy Bazaar and what we're trying to do, that's not changed.
Just want to add on that, Mr. Bansal, the basic ethos and the main ethos of Policy Bazaar is also to bring transparency in insurance, like you also clearly mentioned here. Talk to us about what led to the founding of Policy Bazaar.
See, as I said earlier, if you think about what the product a middle class family will be buying in 2008-2009 period, you talk to anyone, they'll always talk about tax saving, maybe car insurance. You talk to the same family today, they'll always talk about health insurance, term insurance. We always thought that the insurance is supposed to be majorly for protection. See, it is a product which is for unplanned events or a catastrophic event in your life. Right. And that was not the focus for the industry, and somehow we all come from middle class families and we thought that this is a very big need from a consumer perspective. See, the problem being solved in insurance is always about demand. So if you think about the business models, lending is all about solving for the supply, insurance is all about solving for the demand. If you are able to get customers to think about this product need, very, very few percentage people think about this at any given point of time. And that's the unfortunate truth about this industry.
Right.
Even though we may do whatever advertisement we do on TV, we may on Google, we may do whatever we do, customers will not think about the product unless they see someone in their vicinity, some family, some friend, some colleague going through a sad experience.
And then they
suddenly say, oh,
insurance.
I also need to have this product. And then Policybazaar becomes top of the mind recall and they come to us. So from that perspective, you need to have that customer in the right mindset come to you, and then you help them make the right decision, go through the transaction, and handle the whole journey for the customers. But yeah, transparency is obviously very, very important because it is customers who have to choose what product they want to buy. And if customers have to choose what product they have to buy, they have to understand the product, they have to understand the features, pricing, nuances. There's lots and lots of fine print. Right. So yes, somewhere the way we work, where customers come to us, transparency is built into the model itself.
So, Policybazaar is also indeed India's largest insurance aggregator. What strategies or policies have you implemented to scale up the business further?
I think, to be honest, you don't need to overcomplicate things. Just keep it simple. Just think about, as I said, insurance, its product, buying, claim. If there is an issue with the product, what do you do to solve that issue? If there is a product issue with the buying, what do you do to solve that buying problem? And same with the claims. Yes, you use a lot of tech, you use a lot of AI, you use a lot of operational efficiencies to become better and better and better, both for your partners and for the customers. But eventually, it's not very, very complicated what we do. The only one thing which differentiates Policybazaar from anyone else is we are passionate about solving this problem. If someone else has the same thinking that, okay, they are living and dying for solving of this one problem, that customers buy health insurance, customers buy life insurance, they get the best service, they can do what we do. Unfortunately, we haven't found anyone who is as passionate about this, that's all.
And that's one of the reasons why you're also #1 in the country right now. What aspect of Policybazaar's corporate culture are most important to you today?
Okay, when it comes to culture, there are lots and lots of small pieces there. A person who is joining the company, you have to start trusting that person from day one. That's the basic starting point. You cannot say, okay, this person is joined from competition or this person is joined from XYZ background. I'll take 6 months to start trusting. No. Either you trust or you don't trust. It's 0-1. You give them huge amount of space, you delegate responsibility, and let them take the decision. Let them own that area of what they are doing.
That's how you help them grow in your company.
Eventually, if you have to do everything and they're just executing, they're not going to be happy.
Correct.
Right. So you have to create that environment where they believe it's their own baby, it's their own company, they own that. And it doesn't come from just ESOPs, to be honest. ESOPs help, but it's more of the culture that you are able to create. So what we do in our case is we give them a boundary condition. We say, okay, if you're going outside of this boundary condition, come to us. But within that, you decide whatever you want. See, to be honest, if suppose you and I are sitting on a particular problem and we have to take a decision, today, who knows whether your decision is right or my decision is right?
Right. But you're trusting that person.
If you are owning that and you are putting company first and not your own interest first, it's worth trying. Why not? Maybe it will work, maybe it will not work. If it doesn't work, let's try something different. But you have to give that comfort to the employee or the team member that doesn't matter what will happen. Just try and put an honest effort.
So is that also one of your core principles?
Oh yes. I think we're very, very proud of the culture. One of the differentiating factors about Policybazaar as a digital platform compared to any other digital company would be we have amazingly low management attrition. Whether the person joined 15 years back, 12 years back, 10 years back or 5 years back, once they come to Policybazaar, they stay with Policybazaar. So touch wood, we have almost nil attrition.
And I think because of your approach towards the employees, you have also been listed as one of the top 100 CFOs in the country by the CFO India magazine in 2016, of course. But you're, of course, now the Executive Vice Chairman of Policybazaar. But I want to talk to you about your past role as the CFO. What kind of challenges did you face?
See, okay, let's also now understand what is a CFO, right? Typically, any business, you have two broad parts. One is the growth part, one is the process and control part. The way I looked at CFO role was to do whatever it took from the back-end system perspective, so in terms of processes, in terms of control, in terms of whether it is finance, legal, HR, doesn't really matter. I'm not a CA by training, I'm more of MBA, so I don't understand accounts as well. I have a very, very capable team who could do that part for me. But it was not just about, okay, your P&L is looking right or your balance sheet is looking right. It's more about how do you enable business to grow faster by asking the right questions. Sometimes you have to also veto the decisions because it can be strategically wrong for a company in long run. But you have to work very closely with business all the time. So the way I approach that over last 15, 16 years, in fact, last 2-3 years, I'm not active CFO of the company now. But prior to that, it would always be how do we work together to solve a particular problem, but put enough controls and processes so that it doesn't put company at risk. But it can't be that just because I have the CFO title, I'll stop everything or I'll want people to come to me for every approval. No. We have very, very few processes across the board. The whole HR policy we have is one line.
And what is that?
Be fair and kind. That's all. So don't overcomplicate. That's the one basic mantra I always say. Most of the things are very simple. And just focus on the fundamentals, focus on what is good for the long term, from consumer perspective, from company perspective, that's all.
And I think that's also your mantra of just don't complicate things is also one of the reasons as to why Policy Bazaar, it is what it is today as India's biggest insurance aggregator. Let's take a few steps back and talk about your educational journey. You're a graduate from IIM Calcutta, one of the most prestigious universities in India. How has your experience been there, and how did it perhaps help you in navigating your role in the insurance sector?
So I think my experience prior to IIM was very limited in terms of my overall exposure to how a business is run. IIM gave me 2-3 things. One, it gave me the confidence that I belong to that segment of people. Because obviously few people get selected and you are quite lucky to get selected. I am not from IIT. So, for non-IITians to get selected into IIMs is a little tougher relatively. Second, it started to give me some perspective of how different parts of business work with each other. This is almost like a jigsaw puzzle. There's HR, there's operations, there's tech, there's finance, there's legal, there's sales, there's BD, different parts. How do they interact with each other? How do they work with each other? How do they enable each other? You start to appreciate that part more and more because you get exposure to different subjects.
Right.
And obviously you create a great support network within your batch. So the network that you create continues to be a support system forever in life. So yeah, it's a great experience to have, to be honest.
We have been speaking about your success mantra, which is don't complicate things. In one of your older interviews, you said that success of any business lies in working with a team of different mindsets. Talk to us more on that.
So it's the same thing. See, if you look at Policy Bazaar, even today, after 16 years, in the top 100 people, I think there are only 2 people who have ever worked in insurance before coming to Policy Bazaar. But they had the right attitude to solve the issues, and they had the learning. So one, they were a solution mindset, and second, they had learning mindset. And once they got the space to do what they were supposed to do, most of them have thrived. So it didn't really matter that, okay, do you have a particular experience, till the time you have the right attitude. And having different mindset definitely helps. Even just look at us, whether it's me or Yashish, we don't come from insurance background before we started Policy Bazaar.
Right.
And we were able to ask very stupid questions because of that and learn a lot. But we were not constrained by, okay, this is the way things have been done in the past and we'll do it in the same way. And maybe one of the reasons Policy Bazaar could do what it did was this, because we didn't have any preconceived notion of this is the way things will be done. The same applies to our team. They come from very, very diverse backgrounds. They bring their own, history with them, and they're able to replicate some of them in an insurance scenario when they work at Policy Bazaar. So it's actually enriching to the team that they don't have a specific skill only, but they come from very diverse background.
Right, Mr. Bansal, we also live in a very rapidly changing environment. How do you balance the need of innovation with the risks that comes along with it?
See, I don't think when you talk of innovation, that's a separate bucket. AI, innovation, tech, whatever you want to call it, it's part of the solution that you want to create. If it is not creating any solution which is helping customer or it's helping your partners, then it's useless. So all the things that we do in terms of tech, AI, innovation is very, very clearly focused on solving either for the partner or for the customer. I'll give you a very simple example. In India, for term insurance, we end up paying roughly 1 rupee premium for 1 rupee premium for 1,000 rupee covered, sum assured.
Okay.
Just think about a scenario where 1% fraud comes into the P&L. If you're paying 1 rupee for 1,000 rupees, 1% is a very, very big problem to solve. If it comes as a fraud, right?
Right.
We have been able to use a lot of tech, including technologies like face recognition, voice matching, geo-tagging, lots and lots of stuff, very deep tech, to figure out about 4% where we believe it's a fraud and another 3% where we believe it's potential fraud.
Okay.
Now, 5 to 5.5% policies will not get issued because of this. We will not get paid. Again, think about it that we have spent marketing money, we have already put operational effort, and we are not getting paid. But that's the right thing to do. So you use tech, you use innovation with a specific purpose in mind. Eventually, standalone, they don't mean anything.
Right.
But company has been always innovating continuously.
Mr. Bansal, have you had any mentors who have significantly impacted your path? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, see, multiple people have helped when you build a company and even along your career. In fact, I would say some people teach you what not to do, some people teach you what to do, both.
And both are equally important.
Both are equally important because, you may have bosses where you see, okay, this is one trait I would not want to copy because you don't appreciate that, right? So that's also learning.
Right, absolutely.
In our case, we were very lucky to have InfoEdge as the first investor. So the way Sanjeev was able to guide us in some things at the early stage was very, very useful. But if I have to mention one specific name, I'll actually mention my co-founder, Yashish Dahiya. Yashish and I are chalk and cheese in that sense. He is a very outgoing marketing product, BD personality. I'm a more process and control personality.
This is a complete, perfect combination.
The way he's been able to give me space and integrate me with the whole business and some of the things that he has taught in terms of the way he thinks and decides have been life-changing for me also. I hope some of mine has also rubbed on him, but I consider him to be one of the people I have learned most in the last 15, 16 years.
Can you describe your leadership style, especially when you face any kind of complex scenarios?
See, it depends. Again, the decision making is being done at an individual level or at a group level.
Okay.
If we are talking about the group level, then everyone who is sitting across the table, they have same one vote. They all contribute. They all collectively decide what needs to be done. But once you decide, then whether you agree or disagree, you go for it. If it's an individual decision, then it's a very different process. You can't rely on data for every decision, and you can't wait for 100% of the data to achieve before you take the decision. So sometimes you have to balance what data is available, what analysis is available with your gut feels. And one of the biggest burden of any founder, to be honest, is taking the decision and living with it. Because your decision doesn't impact just you, it impacts all the staff.
Right.
Today, Policybazaar, Paisabazaar combined have about 20,000 people. Any decision we take which can impact the whole company can impact the 20,000 families. So it's a burden that founders usually carry.
Correct.
And it's one of the toughest things, to be honest, for any entrepreneur.
Keeping the business talks aside, let's get to know you a little more, Mr. Bansal. What are your personal interests and hobbies, and what do you indulge in when you're not working?
I love to read. So, somewhere I would say learning new things and getting new experiences is what drives me. So whether it's books, whether it's travel, whether it is watching a lot of content on, mostly YouTube and other channels where you have good content available now. It's mostly about learning about how the world works, how individuals work, how societies work, whatever is possible. So that's the main focus area for me all the time.
When I was searching about you, I also read that your interest lies in education and civil rights. And like you mentioned now, you love reading. Any recent book that has had some kind of a major impact on you?
I won't say there's a single book, to be honest. I mean, there are lots and lots of books. I mean, when we were all studying in college at that time, I think a lot of us got influenced by Ayn Rand. But over time you realize that also has its own pitfalls. But on recent books I read was about Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Again, beautiful book. Sapiens is again something I would recommend to everyone to read. So there are multiple such books. You take small bits from everything. The books have this capacity to sort of enable you to look into someone else's mind and grab whatever is relevant to you. So I won't call a single book, but yes, multiple books have helped me over time.
And what is the best piece of advice that you've received in your career so far that you perhaps still implemented?
I think it will go back to keeping things simple only.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's your mantra.
Yeah, so eventually it's all about that only. I mean, we can all complicate stuff, whether it's personal life, whether it's professional life, to whatever extent we want. But eventually, if you think back after 5 years, you'll find that it was not worth it. Things were not as complicated.
If you could offer one piece of personal advice to all the young entrepreneurs who look up to you and who want to start their career in the insurance sector, what would that be?
See, if people are thinking of a long-term value addition to their personal life and in their professional life, try different things. Don't be afraid of trying different things. That's one of the most important. If you're in a large corporate, typically you shy away from trying different things because you feel that if it doesn't go wrong or right, so it can impact your career, your appraisal in that particular year. But eventually, you can't play safe all the time. It's just one life. Try to solve hard problem. If you're able to do that, I mean, obviously you have to take care of your family and commercial part as well. But if you're able to focus on hard problems, it's just one life. Why not?
So you do suggest that, of course, to climb the ladder, failures are also equally important.
I would say don't be afraid of failures.
Okay.
Right? When you take a decision, you don't take that decision knowing that it will fail. You obviously expect it to be right. But don't be afraid of the failures, and because of which you may say, okay, I don't want to try. Try, something will work, something will not work. If it doesn't work, move on. If it works, very good.
And what skills do you believe are essential for anybody who wants to start their career in the fintech sector?
I think one, exactly what problem they want to solve for.
Okay.
Don't try to be just me too, because someone else has done this, we want to do this. Fintech is one area where it's not very easy to replicate the models which have worked globally also. It's something which has worked in US or China or Europe. They have their own regulations, they have their own systems. It may not really work in India. Similarly, like what Policybar has been able to do in India, you don't find another Policybar anywhere else in the world, right? So fintech in that sense is very local. So please focus on what problem you are solving, and second, be mindful of the whole regulatory piece, because eventually fintech means you are touching someone's, obviously money in some form. So you have to be very, very cautious about the compliances and regulations. You don't really try to take a shortcut on those things.
Right.
In fintech specifically. So these two things are very, very important if someone is thinking.
And do you foresee any kind of changes in the fintech sector in the future? And how is Policybazaar adapting to that?
No, I think, the problem that any business tries to solve, including Policybazaar, are not new problems.
Okay.
When you talk of fintech, what is fintech? Payments, credit, investments, insurance. That's all. What you do within these, again, are not very complicated. Within insurance, you can solve for the customer, you can solve for the agent, you can provide services. That's all. Again, not very complicated. So I don't think it's going to change drastically, but there will be niches where someone has not focused enough. You have to figure out that market segment or customer segment and then try to build for that solution.
Well, Mr. Alok Bansal, thank you so much for joining us on WION Business Masters and sharing your journey and tips with the viewers and with us today.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, we come towards the end of this week's edition of WION Business Masters. Join us next week with yet another trailblazer.